Chapter 9, Misha. Zara had left for work, and the house descended into a silence that felt different from the night. It was not heavy or doubtful. It stretched out, open and undisturbed, every room holding its shape without interruption. I moved down from the attic, slipping through the stairwell and into the living room, letting myself adjust to the place as it was during the day. Light filled the room through the wide window, falling across the floor and catching on the glass cabinet near the wall. Inside it, small figurines stood arranged with care. I drifted closer, stopping in front of a row of tiny glass cats frozen mid-play, their shapes curved into each other as if they had been caught in the middle of movement. I reached out to them without touching, gathering myself in a manner I did not fully understand. Every part of me narrowed to that one point. The rest of the room moved, the couch, the table, the clock ticking behind me, each detail slipping out of focus as I pushed deeper into a space without clear boundaries. Nothing happened. The figurines remained still, the light catching their edges exactly as it had before. The effort slipped out of me, leaving behind a hollow kind of embarrassment. I pulled back slightly, unsure of what I had expected. It felt absurd, standing there attempting to move an object that wouldn't even register my presence. I almost let it go. Then one of the cats shifted. It was small, barely noticeable, the slightest scrape against the glass beneath it. But it was enough. The stillness had been broken, and the room no longer felt closed off to me. I steadied myself again, holding on to that moment, trying to find the same pressure, the same pull. This time I leaned into it harder, not just reaching but pushing, as if I could press through the surface of the object itself. The figurine slid. Not far, just enough to leave a clear gap where it had been, but it moved in a manner that could not be mistaken for anything else. The line it had been part of was broken. A sudden brightness rose within me, quick and electric. I moved back, then forward again, circling the cabinet as if seeing it from different angles would help me understand what I had done. I turned to the rest of the room, the surge still building, searching for another object to test. The chest of drawers near the wall came into view, its wooden surface worn smooth from years of use. I went to it immediately. This time, I did not hesitate. I fixed on the top drawer, locking onto the thin line where it met the frame. The attempt came faster now, less hesitant. I pushed. The drawer resisted at first, holding its place like it had weight I could not fully grasp. Then it gave, inching outward with a slow, deliberate motion. The sound of wood sliding against wood filled the room, muted but undeniable. I pushed again, and it opened further. The movement sent a ripple through me that felt close to laughter, though it had nowhere to land. I paced around the room, circling the drawer, rising and dipping without thinking, carried by the sudden release of it all. Then I stopped. The drawer was open. The line it had formed with the rest of the chest was broken, just like the figurines had been. The room no longer materialized as Zara had left it. I moved back to it, the energy narrowing into a more focused current. Closing it felt different the instant I tried. The same force no longer applied. Pushing inward demanded greater strength, a sharper precision. I tried once, and it barely moved. I tried again, and it nudged a fraction, stopping before it reached the frame. The endeavor stretched on. Each small movement demanded more awareness than the last. The room changed with the light as the day moved forward, shadows swaying across the floor, the brightness mellowing and then fading. I stayed with it, adjusting, pushing, pulling back, trying again. The drawer crept inward slowly, unevenly, until it almost met the edge it had started from. Not perfect, not seamless, but close enough that it could pass without notice if no one inspected too closely. By the time I stopped, the house no longer felt as open. The silence had thickened, the kind that comes just before someone returns. I turned to the clock on the wall. The hands had moved far more than I expected. The realization developed heavily. All that time, all that effort, for two small changes that could easily be missed. The thought drew a dry, almost amused response from me. It made sense now, as it had not before. The stories I had heard, the half-believed accounts of things moving just enough to unsettle but never enough to prove anything. It was not for lack of trying. I drifted to the couch, letting myself sink into it, or as close to sinking as I could manage. The strain lingered, not physical, but close to it, as if I had stretched a part of myself long neglected. Water ran somewhere down the hall. Zara was back. I turned my head to the kitchen, watching from where I rested as she moved through her routine. The familiar pulse filled the room, anchoring it once more in the ordinary. Cabinets opened, utensils shuffled, the silence broken by small, constant sounds that belonged to the living. I stayed where I was, half turned to her, letting the movement anchor me. She poured herself a glass of wine, the deep red catching the light for a brief second before sinking. Music followed, soft at first, then swelling to fill the room with a brighter energy. She moved with it as she worked, not fully dancing, but not still either, her steps falling into the rhythm without thought. The kitchen filled with the smell of spices as she started cooking, the heat rising, the air changing. Rice steamed on the stove, the lid rattling slightly as it descended into a boil. She stirred the curry with an ease that came from repetition, from knowing exactly how much of each ingredient to add without measuring. I watched her move through it, the small turns, the pauses, how she leaned lightly against the counter while waiting for the food to cook. Content. Not happy, not fully. That word felt too distant for where she stood now. But a steadier presence ran beneath it, a strength that held firm. The music morphed into a song I knew, one she used to play often. Her movements changed with it, lighter, more fluid, her hand lifting slightly as she turned from the stove to the counter. I remembered this. How she used to cook, how she would insist I sit and wait, even when I tried to help. She watched for my reaction more than anything else. It pressed against me, jagged and warm at the same time. I stayed on the couch, watching her, holding on to the peace that came with it. The doorbell cut through the music. It rang once, abrupt and clear, and the house loosened around it. The song stopped midline. The spoon in Zara's hand paused above the bowl before she set it down with care, the metal resting against the ceramic. Steam rose from the stove, curling into the air without being disturbed. She wiped her hands on a cloth and crossed the kitchen, her steps quick but not rushed, like she already had a guest who stood outside. I moved after her, keeping close, drawn by the interruption, by the change in the pace of the evening. The foyer held a cooler patch of air. Light from the porch slipped through the edges of the door as she reached for the handle. When she pulled it open, it revealed Harper standing there, framed by the dim hallway outside, a bag looped over her wrist. "I brought leftovers," Harper said, lifting the bag a little as if to justify her presence. "In case you haven't eaten yet." "I was just cooking," Zara replied, stepping back to make room. "Come in." Harper entered without hesitation, her presence filling the narrow gap with an ease that did not belong to a guest. She leaned in, placing a kiss on one side of Zara's face, then the other, casual, familiar, like it had happened many times before. The room around me tightened. It rushed through me all at once, piercing and hot, rising too fast to hold. I stayed where I was, forcing myself not to move, not to react, even as the distance seemed to close in. Zara took the bag from Harper, her hands brushing against hers for a fraction longer than needed. Color rose across her face, visible even in the soft light of the foyer. I turned before I could watch any more. The walls of the house offered no resistance as I moved, passing through them and up the narrow stairwell, back into the attic where the room remained thick with dust and stillness. The quiet there pressed in from all sides, broken only by the faint echo of movement from below. My path circled without direction. From one end of the attic to the other, then back again, tracing the same lines across the floor. The old trunks, the stacked boxes, the slanted beams, all of it blurred into a loop that held me in place. My best friend. My wife. The words turned over and over, refusing to align into any version that made sense. The room around me carried the heaviness of it, amplifying every thought until it had nowhere to go but back into me. I moved faster. The air energized as I passed through it again and again, disturbing the dust, sending faint trails swirling behind me. The attic no longer held the same energy it had earlier. It responded, reacting to the force I could not contain. A shape crossed the loft without warning. Rebecca appeared near the far corner, cutting through my path as if she had stepped in from another room entirely. "What are you doing?" she asked, brushing past me, her movement abrupt, purposeful. "I'm trying to stay in control," I said, the words coming out unevenly, pulled from the middle of all that pressed inside me. "Zara is downstairs. With Harper." Rebecca stopped near a stack of boxes, turning back to face me. "With her?" she asked. "What does that mean? Are they doing it?" "What?" The word came out harsher than I intended, breaking through the tightness in the room. "No. They're not doing anything. She just showed up. With food. And that smile that..." I cut myself off, the thought spilling out anyway. "That smile that makes Zara blush." The attic held the silence that followed, thick and unmoving. Rebecca stepped closer, closing the distance in a few quick strides. Her hands came up, gripping my shoulders, forcing me to stop pacing. "Just that," she said. "You're losing it over that?" Her grasp held me in place, cutting through the motion I had trapped myself in. "You need to get a grip, Misha. You can't spiral like this every time she talks to someone. She hasn't even moved on properly. What do you think you're going to do when she does?" The words landed hard, pushing through the haze in my head. The attic came back into focus around me. The trunks, the beams, the dust suspended in the air, all of it returned, grounding me in the space I had been tearing through. I stopped. The movement drained out, leaving behind a hollow silence. Rebecca's hands remained on my shoulders, anchoring me there. She was right. The thought came without resistance this time. If I let this take over, if I let every flicker of jealousy turn into action, would tear through this house piece by piece. Zara would not stay. No one would. And none of it would be her fault. I pulled back, easing out of Rebecca's hold, putting distance between us. The attic around me calmed, the dust settling back into its place. "You're right," I said. "I'm losing control." The admission sat heavily, but it did not fight me. "I wasn't like this before," I added, glancing around the attic as if the answer might be hidden in its corners. "Not even when we were together." The thought lingered, strange and unwelcome. Dying has done a number on me. I let out a breath I did not need, letting the last of the tension leave with it. "It's fine," I said, more firmly now. "I've got it under control." "Good," Rebecca said, already turning, her movement cutting through the attic as she headed for the stairs. "Then come on. Let's see what's happening." I stayed where I was for a beat, the serene pressing in again now that the rush inside me had eased. The idea of going back down, of placing myself right in the middle of it, sat heavily. "Are you sure that's a good idea?" I asked. Rebecca did not stop. She reached the stair opening and glanced back, impatience written into her posture. "Yes," she said. "The more you see, the more you'll learn to live with it." Live with it. The words lingered as I followed her, leaving the attic behind. The stairs opened into the corridor, then after another flight into the foyer, where the air held warmth from the kitchen, and the faint trace of spices still hung. They were on the couch. Close. Too close. Harper leaned in, her hand cupping Zara's face, drawing her in with a confidence that left no doubt for hesitation. Zara did not move. Their mouths met, and the room seemed to narrow around that one point, everything else fading into the edges. The sound of their breathing filled the silence between the music that had stopped and the silence that had taken its place. It was uneven, tangled, breaking through the stillness in a manner that made it impossible to ignore. I stopped mid-step. The floor beneath them, the table, the glass cabinet across the room, all of it blurred as my focus locked onto them. A hollow drop opened inside me, deep and sudden, pulling me down with it. The floor tilted, not because the room itself moved, but because my sense of it fractured. "I think we should go back up," I said, the words barely holding together as they left me. Rebecca moved in front of me before I could sprint off. "No," she said. You're not running again. She stayed there, blocking the path, forcing me to remain where I was. Stay. Watch. I wanted to push past her. I wanted to leave, to escape back into the attic where none of this could reach me. But my place held. On the couch, Harper's hand remained against Zara's face, her fingers pressing into her cheek as if she needed to keep her there. Then, all at once, the movement broke. They pulled apart. The gap between them moved, heavy now with what had just happened. Zara viewed her, body drawn inward, her hands tightening in her lap. Her eyes glistened, the moisture catching the light before it could fall. The distance between them stretched, tentative, fragile. Before it could break further, Harper leaned forward again, but this time not for another kiss. She wrapped her arms around Zara, pulling her close, holding her there. I'm sorry, Harper said. I didn't mean to push you like that. I'd been holding on to this for a while, and I didn't know what to do with it. Her words filled the room, soft but clear, and landed in the rift between them. Zara did not respond immediately. She stayed in the hold for a heartbeat, then drew back, creating distance between them again. Her hands moved to Harper's arms, not pushing her, but not holding her there either. I understand, Zara said. I've had those thoughts too. The admission hung there, honest and exposed. But this isn't right, she continued, her voice firmer now, building itself. Misha mattered. She still matters. You were her best friend. Her grip loosened as she moved back. I can't do this and dishonor her memory like that. I can't cross that line and pretend it doesn't mean anything. The words landed with a thud, shaping the room in a conduct the kiss had not. I won't do that to her, she said, and neither should you. The air shifted again, but this time it did not tighten. It opened, clearing the heaviness that had built. Inside me, the drop that had pulled me down began to lift. The pressure eased, replaced by a warmth that spread through the same emotion that had been hollow just moments ago. I had been wrong. The thought came clean, without resistance. Zara had not moved on. Not like that. Not in a manner that erased what we had been. A sense of relief moved through me, followed by an unrelenting edge of guilt. All that anger, all that panic, built on an assumption that had not even come true. I turned to Rebecca, a small burst of energy returning, lighter this time. Did you hear that? I asked, nudging her arm. She gave a short nod, her consideration already drifting from the couch. I did, she said. Seems like things worked out in your favor. There was no softness in it, just an observation, plain and direct. She drifted out of the living room, passing through the wall without another glance. I followed her, leaving the people behind, though this time the house did not press in on me. I have to talk to her. She needs to know I'm here, I said. Rebecca stopped mid-step and turned back, studying me as if she were already evaluating the risk. Is there anything of yours she keeps close? She asked. I searched through what remained of my life in that house, tracing where things had ended up after I was gone. There's a box, I said. My IDs, a few pieces of jewelry, our wedding ring. She keeps it in the bedroom closet. Rebecca nodded once. Good. Then use that. Bring it out where she can see it. She won't ignore that. The idea took hold immediately. It was simple, direct. Personal. If anything could reach her, it would be that. But the moment I pictured the closet, the top shelf came with it. How Zara had tucked it out of sight. I did not wait. I turned and moved through the hallway, cutting into the bedroom in a straight line. The bed was unmade, one corner of the sheet folded over itself, a book lying face down near the pillow. The door to the closet stood closed. I pushed through it. The inside was dim, the light from the bedroom slipping in through the gaps in the door. Clothes hung in uneven lines, some pushed aside, others packed tightly together. Shoes lined the bottom shelf. Above them, the upper shelf held a few boxes. Mine sat near the edge. I moved closer, positioning myself in front of it. The lid was slightly uneven, one side not fully pressed down, like it had been opened more than once and never shut with care. I raised my hand and pushed through it. The contact did not land as it would have before. There was resistance, but not solid, not reliable. I adjusted, focusing harder, pressing with intention instead of instinct. The box moved. Just a fraction at first. Then again. It crept forward, inch by inch, until its front edge reached the tip of the shelf. The bottom tipped forward, catching itself, rocking once as it found a balance point. I stopped. The box leaned out over empty space. Below it, nothing to break the fall. No clothes, no soft landing. Just the wooden floor. If it dropped, it would hit hard. I drew back, recalculating. This was not the plan, not like this. I needed control, not chaos. I tried to reverse it, pushing at the top edge, guiding it back into place. It did not respond exactly the same. The motion resisted me, heavier now, uncooperative. I pushed again, harder this time, trying to lift the front just enough to slide it back. The box wobbled. My focus slipped for a fraction of a second. That was enough. The weight tipped forward. The box fell. It hit the floor with a loud crack, the lid bursting open on impact. Cards, chains, small pieces of jewelry scattered outward, skidding across the wood, spreading into the open gap beneath the hanging clothes. I jerked back out of instinct, my body reacting before my mind could catch up. My foot caught on nothing, and I stumbled anyway, passing through the closet door as it swung wide under the force of my movement. Both panels slammed open against the wall with a flashy bang. The sound echoed through the bedroom. I froze. The closet stood exposed. The box lay overturned, its contents scattered in full view. The doors hung open, still vibrating from the impact. This was not careful. This was not controlled. This was a mess. It had not even been a full day. A blur of motion cut through the door. Rebecca came in first, Adam right behind her, both stopping as they took in the scene. "What did you do?" they asked at the same time. "I was just trying to." The sound of footsteps. Coming from the hallway. They were close. "Oh no," I said, turning to Adam. "They're coming." Adam's attention snapped to the floor, to the box, to all the items that had spread out in plain sight. He moved without another word, dropping down near it, his focus locking in. The scattered items spread. One by one at first, then faster, dragging across the floor as he pulled at them, forcing them into a loose cluster. The box scraped as he pushed it, angling it, trying to guide it under the bed. The movement was rough, uneven, nothing like the careful control he had described earlier. It did not matter. There was no time for precision. The box slid across the floor, catching for a second on the edge of the rug, then breaking free and skidding forward. The bedroom door opened. Zara stepped in, Harper just behind her. At that exact moment, the box shot across the closet floor, clearing the last bit of distance and stopping just short of the bed, its contents still spilling out behind it in a trail that had not made it all the way with it. "This can't be happening. She's going to freak out," I snapped at Adam, the words rushing out before I could stop them. Zara stood in the doorway, frozen in place. Her hands hovered near her mouth, not touching, not dropping, caught between shielding herself and reaching for what lay scattered on the floor. Her gaze moved across the closet, taking in the open doors, the overturned box, the trail of objects that had no reason to be there. Harper closed the distance between them and rested a hand on Zara's shoulder, firm and grounding. Zara leaned into that contact without thinking, her weight shifting just enough to show where she was holding herself together. This was wrong. Every part of it. I had wanted her attention, not her fear. I had wanted her to recognize me, not scan the room as if it had turned against her. And now Harper stood closer, her presence filling the gap I had tried to reach across. Adam examined the floor, then the closet, taking in the damage with a kind of silent acceptance. "This is not good," he said. No, Rebecca answered, pacing along the edge of the room. This is exactly how people end up calling priests. Chanting, smoke, all that nonsense. Try existing through that. Her irritation cut through the tension, but it did nothing to fix what sat in front of us. Zara moved first. Slowly, carefully, she stepped into the room, her feet avoiding the scattered items as if they might relocate again under her. She lowered herself to the floor near the box, her movements controlled, deliberate, like she was trying not to provoke whatever had caused this. Harper stayed close, crouching beside her. Zara reached for the nearest object, one of the cards that had slid out. She picked it up, turning it in her hands for a second before placing it back inside the box. Then another. And another. Her breathing had not evened out, but she kept going. Harper followed her rhythm, gathering the pieces that had spread farther out. A chain, a ring, small items that caught the light as they moved from floor to hand to box. Their shoulders brushed once as they worked, neither pulling apart. Neither speaking. The room held only the silence of movement. The soft scrape of objects being lifted. The dull sound of the box changing as it filled again. I stayed where I was, unable to step closer, unable to leave. This was my doing. Every careful motion Zara made now, every pause before she reached for the next thing, came from what I had caused. Not in recognition nor connection. Just caution. When the last of it had been gathered, Zara placed the lid back on the box, pressing it down with both hands as if to make sure it would not open again on its own. She put it back on the top shelf. This time, however, she pushed it further back and stepped out of the closet, Harper rising with them. They moved out of the bedroom together, leaving the doors open behind them, exposed in a manner it had not been before. The room stayed as they left it. Nothing moved.